What's up, everybody, and welcome to Unlocking Kingdom Hearts Episode 2. I'm your host, Cameron Hawkins, and today I am with the usual crew. Jonathan Dornbush, how are you?
I'm doing pretty well. Got a lot to talk about today. Very excited for this one.
Yes, absolutely. And Alexa Ray Korea?
After this weekend, I am so excited to be here talking to you guys about this.
Yes, I'm this has been a long time coming, so I'm excited to see where people's thoughts are with this game. And last, Kevin Diaz, how are you?
Doing good, doing good. I beat this game close to like 2-3 weeks ago. Honestly, it's been a
Yeah.
little bit. So I've been sitting on a lot of these opinions that I've been like hinting to on Twitter, but didn't want to go fully into it. So I'm glad we're
Mhm.
gonna be able to fully get into Chain of Memories and really dissect this game. You know what I'm saying? Because it's a lot. It's a lot.
Yeah, we've been we've been having issues scheduling in a time where we could record the podcast. We were finally able to figure a day out, and I'm excited because we can finally talk about Chain of Memories, and then we can finally have you start Kingdom Hearts 2, which I'm super excited to hear your thoughts on that one. But anyway, so for some quick housekeeping, we do have an episode discussing the announcement and the trailer for Kingdom Hearts 4, which was announced over the weekend. It's going to be me, Alexa, and Jonathan. Kevin's going to sit out because we don't want to spoil the pure innocent boy. And so you have that to look forward to as well. It's a twofer episode. But yeah, so we're just going to hop into things as we take a trip to Castle Oblivion in Kingdom Hearts: Chain of Memories. Kingdom Hearts Chain of Memories was released in America on December 7th, 2004 on the Game Boy Advance, and later got a 3D remake on the PlayStation 2, which was released on December 2nd, 2008, which I found out is like 3 years into the PlayStation 3's life cycle, which is it's a pretty insane uh, release for
True.
it's so late into the PS2's life cycle that I didn't realize that it was that far. It was probably one of the last PS2 titles, which is crazy. But yeah, and Kevin, you've been wanting to chat. You've had like a list of notes going down. Uh, I wanna go to you first. What are your thoughts on Kingdom Hearts: Chain of Memories?
Yeah, surface level. Well, number one, I did not realize that came out in 2008. That's actually insane. But like how I feel about you. So I think surface level, right? I think that given the way this game is laid out from a design perspective, with the remake that I played on the all-in-one collection, I kind of wish I played the Game Boy version. I
Yeah.
think like as I was going into like the middle world and all that, and like really was deep into the game, I realized that like I don't think this is gonna break a certain structure that it definitely has. And I think like the like main combat for this remake, like I think it's interesting, right? Like I think it works, but I don't think it works in a lot of different ways while playing the middle game and like definitely late game stuff as well. So I kind of wish I played this on Game Boy, but I still definitely enjoyed like what this represented in terms of a franchise and where we're at as a story point, and like kind of like being um kind of just like a look back at the first game in a very interesting way that like I think also doesn't like work well with me in terms of like just beating the first game, right? I feel like
Mhm.
given the remake, there's a lot of like, assets that like we already seen before, and like you're kind of just going through similar motions, but like even faster than the first game. So it's kind of like okay, like I'm not having like as much engaging like things to think about while we're going through world to world, but when we're in between in the castle, that's when like we get the nice juicy like new story stuff that definitely carried me through, and just
Yeah.
unraveling the mystery of like what is going on in this castle, like what is the deal with the memories, how is this happening, who's it being done to, like, and all that. So overall, like I have a very extreme things of like, oh, I really didn't like this, but I did love this aspect of this story beat and all that. So very interesting game, but I can't say I hated it. Can't say I
Yeah.
hated it, but like definitely, was an interesting journey for sure.
Yeah, I think most of the Kingdom Hearts community like would consider Chain of Memories to probably be the most divisive title in the series. Like some people
Yeah.
really love it, some people think it's fine, and some people don't like it. Mainly, and that mainly has to do with the card combat system, which I really enjoy, and I think it's really interesting and different. But Jonathan, what are your thoughts on Chain of Memories?
Ooh, yeah.
Base level, ground level,
No, yeah, speaking of the divisive, it's funny because I've long held this opinion of Chain of Memories and have never really talked about it much because I knew how divisive it was, so I guess I'll open myself up to it now.
Now's the
God.
time.
I love Chain of Memories.
Yes!
The GBA version specifically.
Yes.
I think Chain of Memories is a travesty.
Yes,
comparatively.
I agree.
Like I think it is such a disservice to that game, both on a gameplay level and an art level.
100%.
And it bums me out that like obviously Kevin, it's the most functional and easy accessible way to play that game. So like I don't blame you for playing it that way. It bums me out that they didn't find a way to preserve the GBA game better because I do think whether they like released it as a DS card or a 3DS card so it could be playable again, like that version of that game, and especially I think Kevin, you touched on something really interesting, like playing it in the space that we did compared to when Kingdom Hearts 1 came out and in between 1 and 2, I think also really made the story satisfying in a different way. But yeah, I love Chain of Memories on the GBA. Like I had such a fun time playing that game when it first came out. I played through it probably like 4 or 5 times. I really like the card combat system on that plane. I think the art is beautiful. I think the story stuff it teases is really well done. And I think Chain of Memories is like such a hollow impersonation of the game almost. It's almost like the nobody version of that game, which I guess is fitting.
I love it.
But it bums me out because like it is a thing where I think, man, if everyone could experience Chain of Memories in the best way, I think it would be held in a higher position. I do understand people's like the card combat system. I very much understand it does and doesn't work for some people. It's just how combat systems work. But for me, I think it all really worked well in that version, and I was fortunate enough to have a GBA version to go back to revisit for this. So that I think helped me get back in the mode of how much I loved it, but I very much understand people coming to Chain of Memories and probably not connecting with this game overall as much.
I agree. Alexa, what are your base level thoughts on Chain of Memories?
So I actually agree with Jonathan. Like the GBA version is really well done. I think it's something that is both familiar and different to the first Kingdom Hearts, and something else that like makes just to convince everyone, if you can, go find a Game Boy and like pick it up and play the original version. Chain of Memories is actually like, it's like they went back and tried to make that version of Chain of Memories the most mainstream video gamey. Like it's actually way more violent than the original. Like they added a bunch of cutscenes and there's stuff like so in the original when Axel and Vexen have their final confrontation, Axel just kind of like hits him with his chakrams again and Vexen dies. But in the new version, Axel like incinerates him, like just burns him alive. And in the original for I think it's the Riku replica takes out Zexion, and instead of just stabbing him in the back, he strangles him to death. So part of me like really feels like Chain of Memories, like they like maybe they didn't have enough faith in it to like survive like the remake on like the bigger platforms, so they tried to make it really gamey and a little more violent, but like that's not really very Kingdom Heartsy. And that kind of tainted my whole overall experience with Chain of Memories, like in my life as like someone who has played both versions. So Chain of Memories for me is kind of like a real mixed bag, except for maybe that last third when the plot stuff comes up, you learn what's going on with Naminé. And then to me, the most worthwhile piece in Chain of Memories is Riku's story, like what you get with him, because you get to spend time with Mickey for the first time. You get to learn a little bit more about like the darkness and how it works. And then you get, of course, our boy's story, who I feel is the main character here. So yeah.
Yeah, no, I love Chain of Memories. It's definitely I think it was like my third favorite Kingdom Hearts game. I think the story is really compelling because I think even now, with the amount of games that have come out, we see specifically Sora in a way that I don't think we really see him, like in a position that we don't really see him in for like the rest of the series. You could argue maybe later in Dream Drop, but like not remotely as compelling. But I think the big theme of this game is just manipulation and how these characters, especially Sora, are trying to understand, like trying to, just seeing Sora like be in this place where he doesn't remember Kairi and doesn't really like, he kind of loses his sense of self. And how that affects his relationships with like with Naminé and Riku Replica, and just like kind of not like questioning like his motives or his objectives, but like I don't know, I just feel like it puts him in this position where we just don't see him in other games, where like he doesn't it's a sense of like he doesn't really understand what's going on, but then like that pure selflessness that he has like makes him continue forward in the point where like it actually but also like this kind of naiveness to him that like, there's a point where he just like ditches Donald and Goofy. It's like I'm going forward with or without you, and it's just like, and again, this is just like things that we just don't see in the series moving forward, and I like really resonated with that, and like, but like at the end of the day, he's still Sora with the relationship, like the stuff with like Naminé saying like, I really am nothing to you, and he's just like, no, you are, 'cause even if these all are false memories, they're my memories, and like that was just such a really that was like the moment where I was like, this is Sora as a character. This is the perfect way to exemplify like what makes Sora the character that he is, like the hero that he is. And yeah, that's how I feel about Sora's stuff. I think we can kind of go Sora's stuff and then Riku's stuff after. So like, yeah, what are your thoughts on Sora's kind of adventure and characterization that he goes through in this, Kevin?
I put out a tweet when I saw everyone like celebrating the 20th anniversary of Kingdom Hearts. 20th, right? 20th? I didn't get that. Yeah, 20th. And like I didn't say it in that tweet, but the reason why I said like, hey, like I'm beginning to see like Kingdom Hearts has a lot more depth than just like anime Disney or whatever. Like, you know what I'm saying? It was Sora's journey, right? Of like him, holding up a promise to someone that was based on false memories that this other person created, Naminé, right? And like Sora's still holding up that promise, right? And like and still like being like, hey, if I said it, I said it, even if it's based off of things that may or may not have been fabricated, right? So I think Sora goes through a very interesting thing that like I did not expect the sequel to Kingdom Hearts 1 to go to. Like I feel like this is a drastic like change in like what they did story-wise. At least I feel like in terms of like what positions they're putting our characters in, right? And like really like it felt almost like a test, right? Of like whatever's coming next, right? Like if you can get past this castle, Donald, Goofy, and Sora, like if they can make it out, and get to the bottom of what is happening to them, they're gonna go on to do a lot more. At least that's how I'm reading it as someone that is playing it first up. Like I thought this was a really just like daring game to make. You know what I'm saying? Like a very like, oh man, like this I feel like probably required like a lot of trust from, I forgot if they were still Squaresoft at this point, but like a lot of like trust in those that crafted this story. Like, hey, like we're gonna take this away that, we could just, do another adventure. Oh, here's more worlds. That could have easily just been the next one. And like, maybe I'm looking at that wrong, because like we do have a Kingdom Hearts 2, and that I'm not sure if to look at that game more as the sequel to Kingdom Hearts or this game. I'm just looking purely off of like the next story progression, right? Like I just felt that this game was like really just like ballsy and like what it did overall, but and more specifically like what they did with Sora, and like even like seeing Sora getting pushed to his limits, and like, you know, once again like running off without Goofy and Donald, and all that. But very interesting position that they put Sora in, you know, overall.
Yeah, because like, you know, in Kingdom Hearts 1 we see Sora as just kind of like this pure, innocent, naive kid, right? And in Chain of Memories, it immediately makes you challenge that idea that like he seeing him in a way that he's being manipulated, but in a way that, you know, he still is that naive kid, but you get this I feel like there's this point where you're starting to like kind of doubt his character because of like the manipulation that he's going through. But then again, when you get to that point with Naminé specifically, you're like it just kind of gives you that confirmation that like no matter what happens, Sora is gonna be Sora. Like Sora can't change. Like in that way, he's a fundamentally good person. Yeah. So Alexa, what do you think?
I think that everything you're saying is correct, and it's also Chain of Memories is sort of the last time. It's the last time that we see Sora truly vulnerable until we get to Dream Drop Distant.
Yeah.
And it's sort of it's actually the last time we see both boys vulnerable, because as we move forward, Riku continues to be vulnerable for a while and Sora sort of steps up, and then as we get to Dream Drop Distance, we see it change again where Sora goes back to being vulnerable, and then Riku is like, no, I actually gotta step in and do this. So I think that Chain of Memories is really interesting in that that's sort of the last. It's almost like the last of Sora's innocence, like the way you're describing how like with Naminé, where he's like, you know, like they're even though they're fake memories, they're still my memories, and so he's gonna commit to her, and like you're one of my friends now. Like that sort of really childlike innocence of like, you meet someone and it's like, oh yeah, we're best friends forever. Like you make friends more easily, you create bonds more easily, and that's sort of like even as you get deeper in the Kingdom Hearts series, when he interacts with people in those worlds, he doesn't immediately form those like the bonds aren't. He's not, the way that he reacts to them, he's not immediately like, okay, yeah, like let's go all in. Whereas in 1, Chain of Memories, 2, he's all in all the time with everyone. So this is sort of the last-ish time we're going to see him that way. That's kind of bittersweet.
He's growing up.
Jonathan?
He's growing up.
He's growing up. Literally. Kingdom Hearts 2 opens and he's got like longer legs. It's really crazy.
The one thing about puberty, your legs get longer.
Absolutely.
Your legs get longer.
Yeah,
absolutely.
His shorts are like too short. That's for movies.
Yeah.
He's just getting like classic 70s shorts, basically.
You love to see it. You love to see it.
Jonathan, what are your thoughts?
I mean, I think a lot of the biggest points have already been hit, but I think for me, like something that all of it gets at is by the nature of this game, it is a smaller scale game. And I think as a result, it can take that time to be more personal and can really dig into their psyches, both Sora and Riku, because it's weird. Like you look at a game from a like pulled back level, and I guess if you told a player, hey, you're going to go back to all the worlds you went to in the first game, that would be like, oh, well, that's kind of a bummer. But the way these worlds are set up is you're still within the context of a single building. And like I think the fact that the game is structured in that way and so focused on this in the moment, what is Sora going through? Like only so much time can really pass through all of this. So you're really in his mind state the whole time, and by proxy Riku's as well in his story. And so I think it can take the time and afford to get at all those personal moments. And I think that's partially why I love it. Especially, you know, playing it when I did in between 1 and 2 when they were coming out, playing it on the GBA version, as, you know, there are some cutscenes in there that ran on the GBA and everything, but most of it is in your head. Most of it is you pulling from your memories of the first game. And I also think that's some of the magic that Chain of Memories loses, because I do think it it bonds you more to these characters because so much of it is in your imagination based off what you know from one. Like it benefits so much by that relationship, I think. And it also is really interesting, I think, speaking to what you both, but all three of you were saying, is it's this really interesting game because it is also, Kevin, you're talking about, is this the thing I look at as the sequel to one, is two the sequel to one, and this is a spin-off? That's obviously a thing. I think that gets discussed a lot about Kingdom Hearts, but I think Chain of Memories is like very clearly the first time where, man, if you skip right into two, you're missing a big part of the picture. You can
100%.
you can probably get by on a lot of things, but you miss so much of the nuance. You miss so much of the character development, relationship creation, and deepening, and all these things. And I think it really solidified, for better and worse, I would argue, based on some of the perception the series has gotten since. But like, you can't just play the numbered games. If you do, you're going to miss out on so much of it. And
Much.
Yeah.
Preach.
Yeah.
and I mean, we were talking a little bit of I think before the show of like, once you get into sort of the mobile space, that's this whole other like lengthy thing that you can talk about the ups and downs of that. But that it is genuinely something where, if you're going to go in for the series, you kind of need to be all in. If you do 1, 2, and 3, you're missing so much. And I also think you're missing a lot of the best parts, especially when it comes to Chain of Memories.
Yeah. That's at least
Yeah.
that's at least what I was hoping for, because like I was thinking a lot about like, okay, like, is Kingdom Hearts, right, as a whole, gonna be like the not numbered titles are optional, right? Like, or is it gonna be like when a friend asks you, hey, can I just watch Avengers 1, Age of Ultron, Civil War, then I'll be good for like Infinity War? And it's like, no, you're not. Like, no. You really need to commit, and everything matters.
Yeah.
So like, I'm really happy that you're saying that, like, no, everything here is gonna matter, even these Game Boy just side, quote unquote, side games that aren't titled with a number. Definitely.
Yeah, like
definitely.
Kingdom Hearts is the only series of like any medium where it gets criticized for people telling you to play through every game. Like, and I'm just like, I never really understood that. Like, I get that when these games first came out, they were all over the place platform wise. Like, the follow up to Kingdom Hearts 1 is a GBA exclusive. Like that is odd for sure. And like, there's other handheld titles as well. It just jumps from all these different platforms, but at the end of the day, like, it's still like they're all necessary. So, but yeah, and let's talk about these people in these black hooded, these black hoods. Kevin, what are your thoughts on these black hooded figures known as the organization?
Yeah, very interesting, right? So so I was trying to gather, like, all right, like, what is their plan? What do they got? And then at the end, I think I was able to really like discern, okay, like, I think this was their objective this game. So their objective, as far as I understand it, was to use Naminé to manipulate Sora's motivations to lure him a part of their organization and bring him in, because they want Sora, because they see a power in him. And like, is that pretty much?
That's a very no.
Is
yeah,
that kind of like they just?
That's pretty
That's
spot
what
on.
I gathered.
That's
Like, okay, like I think that's what
yeah, and that's like an
yeah.
important thing I will say that is an important thing to keep in mind in the like next, like in Kingdom Hearts 2 and 358 over 2 days. Those are like very important things that are talked about, and especially in 358 over 2 days. But yeah, and it's interesting because the organization does, obviously they do not succeed in Chain of Memories in that plan, but they do find ways to, like, again, not to the same level of the kind of inner manipulation that Sora experiences in Chain of Memories, but they like manipulate him in ways to have him use his power for them, like in ways that like are genuinely like frustrating for him and for us as the players. Like, oh, this sucks. We're like, this is the predicament that we're kind of in right now, or that Sora's in. And it's kind of, you don't really know, like, no one really knows what to do in the situation. Yeah, Organization 13 is one of those things where I think the main I think the game in Chain of Memories does a good job at showing who in the organization are like more important or going to have be more important moving forward.
Yeah.
But I also like kind of one of the things I do wish Chain of Memories did more, which is more characterization on some of these characters. Because we only get to see them for one game as themselves in a real way. I wish that we got more, because there are these interesting characters that that there are some like, I don't want to say stereotypes, but there's like each organization member kind of has like their own specialty, right? Like Zexion is supposed to be kind of like knowledgeable. Vexen's like this experimental scientist. Like they're these
kind of like roles and like
exactly
Yeah.
archetypes, and kind of like
archetypes. That's a better way. Archetypes. That I wish we got to see more of that in the series moving forward, but most of them bite the dust in this game. So it is interesting. But I will say, like, is there anyone specifically that stood out to you, Kevin? Like out of the organization?
Yeah, anyone?
I think
Anyone?
definitely there was a fat emphasis on like Axel. I feel like.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. And then I'm trying to. I think definitely Axel was the one. I was like, okay, like I'm taking notes on you. Like you seem to be very like even kind of like going. He's the one that kind of like goes against the will of like the other I forgot the other guy's name. There's a lot of names.
Vexen, Marluxia.
Marluxia is the leader.
I think
He
I know like goes behind one of their backs to let Nominate go. Is that what happened? I think.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. I forgot which member am I thinking of that like he like directly kind of like went against what
Vexen?
he ordered. It probably was Vexen.
Yeah.
Probably. Yeah.
The shield dude, the dude with the shield.
Yeah, him.
Yeah.
Vexen.
Yeah.
I like their hoods though. I like it.
Yeah.
I realize that's what I'm wearing in the artwork.
Yes. Yeah.
I like that.
Oh,
yeah.
you know now.
Fire drip.
Yeah.
Fire drip.
Yeah, and you're I was gonna say Axel, after Riku, Axel is my favorite character in the series by far. Like Axel Axel's a really great character that just gets better, especially in Kingdom Hearts.
Fine wine.
Yeah, Kingdom Hearts 2
age.
and 358 specifically, like he is fantastic in those games. And yeah, like I think that once you play like Kingdom Hearts 2 and 358, like there's just even more layers to what they were doing and what Axel was doing at Castle Oblivion that will be explained.
And Birth by Sleep.
And in Birth by Sleep, that like it's just another thing to sing Nomura's praises, that like you just have all these questions, like this, a game will be able, like he'll make a game that will have a satisfying enough story, or like the character choices and things like that like you'll be satisfied by the time you're like done with it, but you'll still have questions about other things, like whether or not, does this have more like to it than what was shown, and things like that. And almost 9 times out of 10 there is, and Nomura like comes back to it in a way that's really fulfilling, and like the whole organization and like what they're doing at the like kind of like the inner organization drama, I guess I would say, is explained later, and it's it's really, really interesting, kind of like the power grabs that all of them kind of are dealing with. What other things are you were you curious about regarding Chain of Memories before getting into Riku's stuff? Kevin?
I feel like Sora telling Jiminy to write in the journal like thank nominate. I feel like that's gonna be a cry moment in the future, probably. Maybe not. Maybe not. But I'm like, okay, that's an easy seed that like that's gonna come up out of nowhere, and that's really gonna get me for sure. Oh, so they explained that. So okay, so when nominate was like teeing this up, right, about like whether they should go in that like chamber
In the
at the end of
pod.
the game, yeah, the like pod, yeah, like they won't remember anything about, I guess, Castle Oblivion as a whole, right?
Yeah.
So I thought they were gonna pose a choice, which I'm like, maybe that's the wrong era, right? Like maybe that might be something that they would have done, like maybe in like 2015 if the game was out at that point and released at that point. But I thought that was gonna be a choice, and so now I'm just like where I'm at after this game as a whole. It's like I wonder the real effects of this game and how they're gonna seep into like Kingdom Hearts 2, like
Yeah, Kingdom Hearts.
because I mean
like,
they went into the pod, so like they're not gonna remember going through the cat. So then is
no, they won't remember anything about the castle.
yeah, and Sora's not gonna remember nominate, hence writing in the journal thank nominate. Interesting, So that's what I'm more curious about too. Yeah.
And something I will say as well is that like I think that a lot of the questions that you're like you're thinking about, like I think that Chain of Memories, Kingdom Hearts 2, and 358 kind of fit as this weird trilogy of games where like the story begins in Chain of Memories, and then like there's more stuff that's revealed in Kingdom Hearts 2, and then like a bunch of stuff that you may or may not even thought of that was in Chain of Memories and Kingdom Hearts 2 are talked about in 358, and it kind of comes full circle in a really satisfying way. Yeah, so like it's one of those things like Kingdom Hearts 1 is still relevant, especially like in Kingdom Hearts 2 where they go like there's some worlds that Sora and Co will go back to, and like they remember who they are and things like that. But when it comes to like the main story, like the non-Disney-esque stuff, like those three games kind of tell one like circular arc, if that makes sense. Yeah. So all right, yeah, and then so let's talk about Reverse Rebirth, which is Riku's side, which while much shorter, I think is more compelling and is detrimental isn't the right word. A definitive point in Riku's character arc. Where he wakes up in the basement of Castle Oblivion, and he is basically trying to overcome this mentality that he has of utilizing darkness and the kind of inner struggle that he's been having with Ansem, who is like who's fundamentally like a part of him now since the first game, and things like that. Alexa, I know that you have a lot to talk about this, so why don't you go first?
I just feel like this encapsulated story is like probably one of the most beautiful segments or arcs like in the entire series. Like you get through Chain of Memories, which is great, but you're like the dessert, like the thing that you earn for all of that is Riku's story, which to me is just so powerful. And the way that it has been set up, from the way that Riku's combat and his abilities and the rate at which he generates HP, to the people he encounters, to things that are said to him are so artfully crafted in this, like the whole experience is meant to make you feel like Riku, isolated, alone. Like you have just seen Sora on this grand adventure with his two buddies, meeting Naminé, essentially making a new friend, and then at the end being told, we're going to fix you and everything's going to be fine and you're going to head out on your way and it's going to be all great. And Sora's like, that's great. So you have this beautiful story of togetherness and sticking with people and believing in people. And then you have Riku, who is alone who gets freaking copied into like Riku Replica and literally has to confront the worst parts of himself, like physically confront the worst parts of himself. And even when you meet King Mickey, it's still kind of bittersweet because like how Sora has like you have all those friend cards where you can like call them and they help you in combat. Riku has only one friend card. One.
Yeah.
And it's Mickey. Like
I noticed that, yeah.
And it's so sad, and it's because he himself believes, like, after everything that's happened at the end of Kingdom Hearts 1, like, he did sacrifice himself, and he believes in Sora, but also he's basically running in shame. Like, he is ashamed of, like, what's inside him and what he's dealing with, and you'll see a lot of that in Kingdom Hearts 2, and he'll vocalize a lot of that.
Yeah. He's atoning, basically.
Yeah, he's atoning. But the thing about Riku's journey, I think, that makes it so bittersweet is he can't get rid of the darkness, but he can use it to his ability. I actually, so sorry, I'm going to be self-aggrandizing for a second, wrote about this in my book, and I bookmarked the page so I can read the quote from Namine.
Please
so Namine says to him, and Namine at this point, we don't know if she's truly good or truly evil. She's kind of this gray space character. And she says to him that he was unable or unwilling to recognize the truth, which is that it's not that he has completely failed. He is incapable of failing because in reality, he can't because of who he is and what he's taken upon himself. There's no power that can defeat you, not the light, not the dark. So don't run from the light and don't fear the darkness because both will make you stronger. The darkness inside your heart, it's vast and it's deep. But if you can truly stare into it and never try to look away, you won't be afraid of anything again. And so I wrote this in a chapter about like mental illness and anxiety and depression and stuff like that. So like as Riku, like he looks into the worst parts of himself, the parts that he thinks are bringing him down and goes, no, I'm going to turn this around. I'm going to turn my greatest weakness into my greatest weapon. And Namine gives him the choice to either have his memories erased like Sora and rebuild him and wall away the darkness in his heart. Like she literally is like, I can take care of that for you and you'll never have to deal with it again and you won't remember it and you'll be fine, but you can't access it anymore. And he says, no, I'm going to take it. I'm going to roll with it. He feels this like duty and this connection to it and fully embraces that part of himself. And she says, good, because that means now he can fight the darkness. And she uses the phrase, you are the one who can, which is why I think Riku's the main character here and why I think we're going to play a lot more with him in the new trilogy or whatever games come out, because he's literally set up to be, he can not only fight the darkness, but he can actually use it. And that's why I think the story is more.
Beautiful.
Yeah, no, like you're absolutely right. Yeah, Riku's my favorite video game character for a reason. I'm gonna try not to get too emotional, but I had a lot of just darkness in me growing up. Growing up in an abusive household, and many like just having a lot of negative thoughts all the time. And then Riku's story really struck a chord with me, making me realize that like, and I still have a lot of darkness I feel like inside of me, and I try to just overcome it and just be the best person that I can be. And sometimes I don't. Sometimes I fail at that, but at least I'm trying, and I think that that is a very important part of Riku's character arc, and I think that moving forward with his arc, he does struggle with that, right? He's like, oh yeah, I'm gonna go down this path. I am going to utilize darkness for good, but there are still challenges that he faces, and it's just a character. He's just a character that I just see myself in very profoundly. So Riku is a very special character. Jonathan, your thoughts?
I mean, how am I supposed to follow that?
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
No, don't be sorry. I appreciate you sharing all of that, and I do think it speaks to both of what you're saying. I think speaks to the levels at which this series connects with us and obviously so many fans in a way that is easy to brush aside when people just think of the Disney and Square Enix game. I think it's often not nearly given the credit for the emotional complexity at which it gets at, which I think both of you just spoke so beautifully toward. I don't think I have anything like more insightful to add on both of what you said, but I will say something to start off with. Just Alexa, what you had said about the isolation of it, I think is a really well told, mechanically evident thing in this game, in a way that Kingdom Hearts 1 sets up. In the sense of Maleficent always being the voice in his ear, being like, you're alone, like your friends have abandoned you. But this puts that into practice. This gives you a meaningful way into actually experiencing that as the player. And I think like without that, and again, I think it speaks to, you can't skip the non-numbered games. Like I think without that, you miss so much of what makes Cam connect to Riku in that way. What makes Alexa, what you wrote about Riku, be able to connect with an audience that way. I think if you skip out on these things where they do take the time to get so into it, because often the numbered games are the biggest and the bombastic, and so being able to get into this introspective place with him, I think it does such a wonder to the entire series, and as both of you were saying, I think creates this trilogy effect going into to 2 and then 3, 5, 8 over 2 days, but specifically 2 with Riku. I think, man, like Chain of Memories made me go, I enjoyed Riku in the base game, but I will like totally admit as a kid I was very much more attached to Sora's journey, not just because he was the main character, but like the things that I saw and what he was going reflected my own thoughts of like finding a family, finding friendship as family, power in that, and all of those things really, really connected with me. And so I didn't give Riku as much mind. I think Chain of Memories was the turning point for me, where I really, really cared and invested in his role in the series. And I think it just is such a fantastic bump to my love of that character that then remained at that high kind of for the rest of the series.
Yeah, it's at the end of Kingdom Hearts 1, like it's the situation is kind of like am I the asshole? I embraced the power of darkness and turned on my best friend. And you're like, shame on you, Riku. We're gonna have to work on that. And then you leave that game just feeling like, okay, he messed up. He realizes it. Like, that sucks. And then you see what happens to him in Chain of Memories, and you realize that struggle goes so much deeper and is so much harder than what we see on the surface at Kingdom Hearts and Kingdom Hearts 1, because we don't spend a lot of time with him. And then not only are we dealing with that, but it's like very beautifully, like in sort of gamey terms, crafted. Again, like not like Maleficent isn't whispering in his ear anymore. It's like him, but he's internalized all that. And then you have the externalized with Riku Replica, and it's like the absolute shittiest, meanest, like worst parts of himself. And even that replica has like those moments of like, wait a minute, like, and it's just so beautiful and so well done. And I wish there was a way where you could select which one to play first, because I know people skip stuff all the time, and I know a lot of people, like Kevin, you were even like, oh, is this like the B-side, the other thing? And Cam was like, no, you have to play that. Like, that's important too. I feel like so many people skip it, and what we see in this storyline will come back in Birth by Sleep, will come back in Dream Drop Distance big time, and will even come back in like Kingdom Hearts 3, and then and again in Kingdom Hearts 2, of course. And it just makes his behavior make sense, and it takes him from being like your anti-hero character to like a deuteragonist, basically.
Right. Yeah, like I remember, as in chat, like, oh, like, is it just a B-side? Because like in like my head I was like, oh, okay, is this just showing the events of Castle Oblivion, right? And like when we see Riku pop up in the main game, like, is it just exploring just what was unseen in the main game, right? But like I didn't realize how much they were going to define and underline and really bolster Riku in terms of who he is as a character, and like what he's going through especially, right? And like what I think what was like some really big takeaways for me was like, of course, like everything, Riku went through, and him like learning to, use his faults to his advantage, right? And recognize that, hey, I have some dark elements in me, but I don't have to be bad because of that. You know what I'm saying? Like, and I just felt like that was a very like mature way of showing that, right? And correct me if I'm wrong, like, is Riku's older than Sora, right? Not that like the age really matters, right?
Like,
but like
bit.
it seems like he's like a little, like seems like he's like I know there was the height difference, but
he had puberty already, and Sora's about to hit puberty.
Yeah,
so
they're
like his legs were already long.
His legs are long.
His legs were already long. And he's wearing in Kingdom Hearts 1, he's wearing long pants, and in Japanese like culture, the like shorts very much identify like a young person or like a child. And so Sora's wearing shorts. Yeah. So someone taught me this. Sora's wearing shorts for a reason, and Riku was wearing long pants for a reason, because he's meant to be viewed as more mature and more adulty. And if you notice during the series, Riku's pants go from really baggy cargos to shorter again around his ankles. So like the way that they play with like the pants length in the series is also just keep an eye on that. I know that's really weird, but keep an eye on that too.
I didn't know that. Yeah, no.
Yeah, that's interesting. I didn't know that either.
I definitely know that.
It's the pants length and then the color. Because we can talk about this when we get to the end of the series, but a lot of the colors that you see present in Sora's original outfits start to leave his color palette and enter Riku's, like the yellow and the blue, and his continue to be that way, and Sora's continue to sort of get a monochrome. Anyway.
Right. No, that's dope. That's dope. Yeah, like, and I just appreciated like this reverse kind of ends. I want to say like end like DLC, right? Because like that's just how like I'm like I view this, right? Not in like an optional way, because of course you definitely gotta play that. You definitely like have to play this for sure. But I appreciate like how deep and how like just mature they took this story, because I feel like they could have just been like, oh yeah, Riku is just like like they say that Riku is I believe the hero of darkness, as opposed to Sora, who's the hero of light, right? And I feel like they like haven't gone really deep with Sora, right, in terms of a very like personal like what he's truly like what's his mind space like, as deep as they have with Riku in this. And I appreciate that they did that for Riku to give a little bit more texture to what he's going through, right? And then I also love that Riku doesn't choose to forget any of this and go in the pod, right? Like I love that like we're gonna have a character moving forward that is in the main cast that remembers Castle Oblivion, whatever that manifests into, like whatever that actually means in the future. I really like appreciate that it's Riku who's gonna remember what happens, right? And then also with like this is just something that like I'm taking with me in the future, because I think it was a interesting thing where even Mickey has like a changed perception of darkness, like walking with Riku, right? And like he like talks about how like like I'm seeing a twilight path, right? Where like there is like a middle way that like it doesn't have to be so black and white, right? Like it can like that, and like I was like like and at the end, like I'm looking at my notes, like in the end I'm not sure where this was, but like I just wrote down where they talk about like the road to dawn, right? And I love that is in Riku's side, where it's like, yeah, it's dark out, but he's not looking at the sunset. He's looking at the dawn, And I love that, like how this whole just section of Riku's gameplay and his story overall was him coming to terms with like you don't have to look at it like a sunset, like it doesn't have to be this aspect where you have these, dark elements of you where you have to be a bad person. You know what I'm saying? And I love that he's going to be looking at the dawn in the future. You know, I just thought that was really great. Yeah, I really like that. Yeah.
It's a mixture of like, you know, the light and the dark, and just like kind of a sign of optimism.
Yeah.
And which, you know, I think is something that, because I think, oh man, y'all said something earlier that I wanted to make comment on, but now I forgot. But I think that, yeah, what you said about like Mickey recognizing like that darkness isn't just inherently evil, very important moving forward. Very important, like with some characters in the future, and their kind of mentalities and the consequences of their mentalities with that. And God, I didn't even think about that until right now. Oh my God, this series, man, is so good.
No,
it's so good.
Yeah, I like that. I just like that Mickey like also like framed it like he truly like learned something through Riku, you know, like and he's King Mickey, like we're all searching for him, and he seems to have a lot of the answers that we're looking for, you know, and like have like a safety net around him. But like it's cool that he is also learning and walking this path as we're going through, you know.
Yeah, and also Riku continues to be Mickey's favorite. Like you'll see this for the rest of the series. Like Mickey is a huge part in Riku's story. Not so much. It's still prominent in Sora's story, but Mickey is extremely like attached to Riku.
That's so cool.
For the rest of the series.
Yeah. Riku, like Mickey is Riku's Donald and Goofy. And it shows a lot, and oh God, I love the series so much. And I think I also want to, because I feel like we didn't talk about them enough yet. I want to talk about Riku Replica again, because I feel like Riku Replica was interesting, because, you know, at first, you know, you think that's actually Riku. Like, I remember when I first played, I was like, oh, it's Riku, like, you know. But then you just find out that he is a creation, but he feels like his own character. You know, he doesn't feel like he's just another Riku. He feels like he has his own personality, his own motives. And I liked how Riku Replicas, he challenges Sora in a way that is reminiscent of Riku, but still feels different. And then like you go through this game and see like what like Riku, like everything that Riku's Replica, like everything he goes through, and then you like get to Riku's story, and then you find out that he's like more prominent in that story, like when it comes to the narrative and like and all that, more than Sora's, which was I actually found pretty surprising. I don't know, like I feel like that he is kind of this. I feel like he is like the tragic character of this game, and he is like the first character that we see, because I never like really hated or saw Riku Replica as a proper villain in this game. I felt that he was more of a misunderstood character that was, again, being manipulated from Organization 13. And I think Riku Replica is the first character where we see a level of tragedy in Kingdom Hearts, where there isn't a happy ending for Riku Replica, or there isn't this like ending of optimism for Riku Replica. And I think that I don't know, I feel like that's something that I just wanted to talk about that, because I think that this series does have a lot of like moments of optimism throughout, but then there are like a lot of moments, especially farther into the series, that is just full-blown tragedies, like just across the board. And this is just like a small kind of glimpse at what that kind of future for the series has. So
the Riku, like the what happens with the Riku Replica is also like the absolute like final death of who Riku used to be. Like the child on Destiny Islands no longer exists, and that's like that's the nail in the coffin. That's it. Like Riku, like Riku can never go back. He can't. Things with Sora will like never be 100% the same again. Things will change, and we see how they change. But in that moment, he's sort of like literally like his past is who he was is literally dying, and it's also the first character in the series who we actually watch have the who am I conversation, because at this point in Chain of Memories we've now been introduced to, I mean, they don't, it's not as prominently explained here, but the Organization 13 are nobodies, and we don't really know what it means to be a nobody yet. And as we get into future games, I won't spoil it for Kevin, but like there's a lot of questioning about like what makes you human, what makes you person, is it your emotion, is it your memories, is it your connections, like all this stuff. And Riku is the first like the first made entity that we know as a made entity that we look at, who looks at himself and goes, who am I? What am I doing? Like, why am I here doing these things? Why do I feel these feelings I feel? And you're right, he doesn't have a happy ending, and it sucks, and it's sad, and we get a lot of those in the future of people who, when they start to realize who they are, or what's happening, like it's taken from them. So I agree with you, and it's another reason why I think Riku's half of Chain of Memories is an absolute, like, you cannot miss this, because this is where Nomura introduced all those big themes, and once you have those in your head going into Kingdom Hearts 2, everything that happens in that game is heavier.
You see the game in a completely different light with with the context that you're given.
Absolutely.
Any closing thoughts?
Play the game.
Jonathon, how do you feel about Replica, Riku? I don't know if you mentioned anything.
I didn't jump in. I think everyone summed it up really well. I think for me the thing is I'm curious to hear what you think of him, especially after 2, because like Alexa was saying, I do think, and Cam, you were saying this as well, like the ideas of he ties both into manipulation and the idea of identity and selfhood and the concept of who am I so well, that becomes such a foundational part of the franchise. I think there are traces of it in 1 to a certain extent, but I think this is the real kernel of that. And seeing a character who we already know reflected in this way with like a different version, I think it's a really good take on sort of a I guess cloning stories are somewhat common and a trope of things to be able to use well. But I think that this humanizes the clone aspect of it like almost immediately in a way that you rarely get. Usually they're more plot device than character, and he's certainly plot device here. But I think you get an actual understanding of who Riku Replica is in the fact that he doesn't know who he is. So I think it's a really great additional layer that will further, as I think everyone was saying, further help understand the themes at work in the upcoming games. I think it's one of those things where even, I'm definitely want to hear what you think, Kevin, but I think like even if it's something that didn't strike you as much, I think it will just in reflection of once you get into the next game or 2.
Yeah. No, I mean, like, I don't think I have like anything like that original to say about like Replica Riku specifically. I think that's pretty much all been said. Like, I did the one like line where I was like, like damn, where he rejects getting a full replica of Rio Riku's heart, and he was definitely like, nah, I don't want that.
Yeah.
And like that like shows like, oh damn, like yo, there's a like clone, however you want to call it, not really sure how exactly, it manifested, but like for this entity to have that, I mean, what I would consider like there's a soul in there, you know what I'm saying? Like that's that, like it is a replica of Riku, but there is a specific like divide that he even puts in, that he even draws a line in the sand. Like, I don't want to be a complete copy. right? To be like a complete like Riku replica in like the true sense. And then also like another thing that Ansem said to real Riku when Riku, you know, was coming to terms with that there's a replica of him, right? And then like Ansem goes, not a fake, an example of what you should try to be. And I'm like, yo, that is some dark, like that is a really dark line to tell someone that, like you know what I'm saying? So definitely leaving Riku's reverse chain of memories game, you know, that separate, all that, you know, Ansem is very bad for sure. At least like that line hit me like, oh man, like damn, you know, and I'm gonna be very anxious to see, you know, where Riku goes from here, you know, especially like I you know, said some choice words in the first episode, you know, may have said, hey, I wasn't feeling Riku, but I definitely grew to like Riku at the end of the game, and now it's like, oh, I'm really rooting for him for sure, and I'm very excited to see where he ends up, you know, for sure.
Speaking of Ansem, I think Alexa, it was you like on Twitter or something. You were talking about how like Riku's relationship with Ansem, like, was this you about how it was like how it dealt with like a like adult like not adult abuse per se, but like, you know, just Riku having to like Riku, even though he's older than Sora and he's always kind of felt more mature than Sora, he had to grow up quick based off the choices that he made, and you know, kind of dealing with this manipulation that he's getting from an adult character. Was that was something that you tweeted on Twitter, right?
It's not something I tweeted, but I have
remember
like
someone
written
saying
and talked
tweeted
about
something
that.
about that.
It's
Okay.
real. The theme is there, and
Yeah.
it's so
Okay.
obvious. Yeah.
Oh yeah, and I thought
Yeah.
that was like, yeah, that was another really fascinating thing to think about that I didn't really kind of put into perspective until someone mentioned it. Was like, oh yeah, that's like that is something that like I knew that like Riku needed to grow up, but I didn't really think about the kind of like manipulation. Like I knew the manipulation that like of Ansem, but like in the sense of an adult to a child. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's yeah, that was something that I was just like, oh man, that is something that's it's just really interesting to think about. I didn't know if you had anything, if anyone had anything to say about that.
Yeah. Well, like Ansem isn't the only adult that abuses him. Like Maleficent abuses the crap out of him. Like Pete also not nice to him either. Like Riku goes from being the big man on campus as like the older kid on the island who is sort of like, I'm the big brother.
He's the popular kid.
That's a really good point.
Yeah, he's the popular kid, and he, you know, has you know, he's got his little gang, and it's Kairi and Sora, and in that little gang, like he's always the one on top, calling the shots, making the plans, deciding, you know, hey, this is what's going on, and he never really, you know, never really had to think about like, well, what happens when I wake up one day and I'm not top dog? So when the darkness comes and offers him that opportunity to get what he wants, which is leave the island, like, we forget that in that moment, Riku's like, come on, Sora, come with me. And he's still a child, but he's like, come on, dude, let's go. And Sora's like, I don't know. And Riku goes and then has, you know, all of these adults kind of crash into his life being like, oh, hey, like your buddy is actually doing this, and you were meant for this, and you were meant for that. And so all of his, you know, and we'll see a lot more parallels between him and like Xehanort in the future, but like his whole like, I want to get out there and do more, be more, and he's handed it, but it's not what it thought he was, and he kind of has to play the part of like, okay, now I am running with the adults, so I have to be an adult, and he's clearly not an adult and not ready, and that's why we see him stumble, fall apart, like all of that stuff. It's really, but it is really interesting to see that like a majority of the abuse that happens in these games is an adult to a child. Like Sephiroth comes in, bullies a kid, gets beat up and leaves. Like it's very it's very much like the kids are the heroes here, and that innocence sort of protects you from something. Because Sora, like we were talking at the top of this podcast, still has that innocence and that vulnerability, and that creates this like shield to what he will and will not accept from the adults that he encounters. Whereas Riku now has been abused, and so he kind of takes what he gets and runs with it, which is really sad.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I also want to go back really quick because I'm starting to remember things. So I'm sorry that this is all over the place, listeners. But I think another really important thing is just the the differences between what's like Sora's choices and Riku's choices is that like, you know, Riku went to dark and then like, you know, which in Sora is the like the light in the first game, and this one it's like it ends where Sora's sleeping and Riku's like, nope, I'm going to, you know, continue my path alone, and you know, like with Mickey, and just go on his own path. And it's just like, I think just like that level of, I think that's like where we really see the maturity that has hit with Riku, where he's just like, I'm going to make my own choices, like, you know, and I'm going to live with the choices that I have made, and things like that, which I think is really compelling as well. uh Kevin, completely unrelated, I wanted to know, because we didn't talk about this, what how happy were you when you found out that you could summon your boy Cloud in Chain of Memories?
Oh, let me tell you something. What does he have? It's because I used a phrase. Remember, it was when you do a Cloud card, stop, and then attack. What is that called?
I have no idea. There's so many different slates in that game.
Yeah, that was my second favorite slate. My first was Lethal Frame, which a friend DM'd me and said, "Hey, listen, like the remake, not the version you probably should have played, but you know what? Like if that's all you had, I get it. Lethal Frame is gonna help you a lot in like the end game." And Lethal Frame definitely did. So for those that are listening and you don't have access to the remake of this game, definitely keep in mind Lethal Frame later on when you finally get that. Definitely utilize that a lot. And whatever Cloud's, I forgot what it was called, but I know it's Cloud. You do a Cloud card, a stop card, and then an attack card. That's a really powerful Cloud one as well. But definitely, I strictly kept Cloud on. I had multiple Cloud cards on deck.
Like, oh yeah,
of course you did.
I absolutely
no, like
did.
that is
yes sir, absolutely.
That is one thing that the game, I felt like the game, the combat not lacked on, but it was a con, was that there's like fire, thunder, and cloud are all like super OP, and like even Blizzard, like they're all like so powerful compared to everything else that like whenever I would just make decks that's just full of that, like those abilities, because they would just do so much damage. So
yeah,
I mean, go ahead.
I had like deck one that's like my like main, like if I'm in the world, this is what, you know, just has, you know, cure, just stuff that's kind of like all over the place. Then I had deck two, which was specifically for bosses that I was having a hard time on, which was pretty much all like lethal blades and like clouds, just the whole deck. So at least like I always appreciated that, you know, they allowed you to make those different decks. You get up to 3. I'm not sure if you can unlock more. Probably just those 3. And like I think the last like big thing I'll say about the combat is that like I appreciate like what the remake was like trying to go for, right? And like I get how like on like service level, like it may look better to some people, right? But I think like a big issue that I kept feeling was that the remake, at least in the combat zones, felt very fast, right? And when I was starting to learn these different card combinations, it's really hard to put those together and keep track of every enemy on the field and dodge their attacks while you're trying to build up your specific slide that you're trying to execute. And not sure if you even could, but if you threw up like the wrong card in succession, like I don't think there's a way to cancel out a slight progress that you're trying to build. Does that make sense? What I'm trying to say? Like if I'm trying to build like Cloud stop attack and I accidentally do Cloud attack, right?
Yeah. No, that sucks.
I'm dedicated to that. Like that's just something that I can't undo. So you gotta just commit to whatever you were building right there. So yeah, like I feel like those two aspects definitely brought down the overall gameplay enjoyment as a whole. That I think that like I imagine the Game Boy version is slowed down and you're able to think more methodically about what you're building in the Game Boy version. Y'all can tell me if I'm wrong, whatever, but like that's kind of like how I imagine the Game Boy version playing out, right? It being a little bit more like strategic, you know?
I think the Game Boy version, you just have a better sense of the field at all times.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because of the perspective. The battles can still be very fast.
Okay.
Especially some of the harder ones. But you're always just kind of looking at that. Like it's a more 2D plane, so you're very much, always with a sense of everything. Depending on where you have the camera going, depending on the room in Rechained Memories, I feel like you can kind of lose track of things and
definitely lose track of things, yeah.
It's often more, I think, of a gotta like make sure everyone can kind of be in your field of view. Whereas I think the advantages of the GBA version do give you a little bit more time to process things, but the battles are still very, very quick.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'll take even being able to look at every enemy on the field, in my view space, because like that was.
You can do that. You can do that on the Game Boy Advance.
Yeah,
version.
that's a huge advantage. Yeah, for sure, definitely. But I actually grew to like the card combat. I like it. It definitely grew on me, but I will say like it was kind of a slow burn. Like getting used to that.
Trying to understand. Learning and things like that for sure, definitely.
Thankfully, the Chain of Memories, this is the only, I think, remake for the new consoles that has this sort of dissonance problem where the remake is so vastly different from the original.
Oh, cool. Okay.
So, yeah, because I think like 358... No, 358 is just cutscenes. Right? So 358 you have to play, but like Birth by Sleep and Dream Drop Distance are pretty...
They're just like remasters, right? Yeah. They're just like HD remasters,
Yeah.
Well, good. That's our chat on Kingdom Hearts Chain of Memories. Next up, we have the greatest of all time.
Yes.
Oh, shit.
Kingdom Hearts 2. I'm so excited. I'm so excited. Right. Kevin, I legitimately think that this will be one of your favorite games of all time by the time you finish it.
Let's go.
Like, yesterday I was just watching someone who was like playing through the Kingdom Hearts games on YouTube, and I just like had to watch them play through the end of Kingdom Hearts 2 because like, man, that is like, and she was just bawling at the end of it, and I was just like, it makes me so happy. It really is a special game. It has a lot of themes to play with. I think this next episode might be our most lengthy conversation because there's just a lot to talk about, a lot to dissect in the story, like alongside the gameplay and things like that. I'm super excited to see how you feel about it. And it's worth mentioning for those that are listening that if there is a secret ending as well for Kingdom Hearts 2, you don't have to unlock it yourself. You can just watch it on YouTube if you want. But if you do want to unlock it yourself, you have to beat the game on Proud Mode. That's something to keep in mind. Yeah. And also, there is a secret boss called Lingering Will. That's not spoilers. That means nothing to you. That is important to the future of the series. Okay. So you should watch the cutscenes for that boss fight as well. Once you finish, this is all after you finish Kingdom Hearts 2. So those are the two things to know going into Kingdom Hearts 2. When it comes to like the additional story content that's after you beat the game. But until next time, Jonathan, did you have anything you wanted to plug?
You can find me on Twitter at JMDornbush, probably talking about Kingdom Hearts 4. Yes. I think like last time, when we last recorded, it was still in the midst. My other JRPG podcast, Take Your Time, we finished our playthrough of Persona 5 Royal, and this year the calendar lines up perfectly in game. So if you want to jump into Persona 5 Royal, this year you literally can play so that, Monday is the 15th, Tuesday is the 16th, whatever, and play along with us for that wacky adventure that it was.
Awesome. Alexa.
Well, we're getting into Kingdom Hearts 2, so I'm about to become absolutely insufferable.
Love it.
Everyone who's playing along with us, I did write a book specifically about the themes of Kingdom Hearts, but centered around Kingdom Hearts 2A. You said as the linchpin of it. So you really enjoyed Kingdom Hearts 2? We're saying.
Whoa, you are freaking out there. Wait, what just happened? No, what just happened?
No.
Hold on.
No.
We just had a complete, like, you're talking about your book, and then just everything kind of went all over the place.
Everyone go buy her book.
Yeah.
Everyone go buy your book. Yeah, let's make it simple. Everyone go buy Alexa's book. It's on Amazon. It's cheap. It's like not even $15. Buy.
Yeah, get it. It's cheap.
And Kev.
Oh,
yeah, anything to plug?
Like,
yeah.
What's up? What's up, bro? What's good?
How you doing?
YouTube.com is PlayStation Source. We got a lot to talk about there. PlayStation Plus, new service tiers, all that good stuff. The good and the bad on that. Another chapter in the Abandoned story as well. We got to talk about that as well on the channel. And Twitter at PSOrsVids for that specific channel. But my personal Twitter at TheKDiaz123. Follow me on there. Get some early tweets about Kingdom Hearts 2 for sure. And two things before we go into Kingdom Hearts 2. One, my friend Christian told me to block out like 5 hours when you start Kingdom Hearts 2. That's what he told me, that like block out more than that. Oh snap! Okay,
give yourself start it on a weekend morning.
Okay.
Because it completely depends on how quickly you understand how to complete certain things. So give yourself a day.
Okay. Interesting. That, and I at least appreciate everyone that's told me Kingdom Hearts 2 is goated, 10 out of 10, life-changing game, top tier, because like I feel like a lot of people, when they feel that way about a game, right? At least I do. I feel like a lot of like hesitation, like a lot of like hesitation of like, I don't want to like overhype it, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? But it's been across the board. Everyone that's played Kingdom Hearts 2 has told me the exact same things. Like, no, like this is the one. Like, this is the one. So I'm very excited to go check it out for sure. Definitely.
Yeah, and we have very similar like video game tastes.
Yeah,
like,
exactly. Yeah,
we've had the same game of the year two years
Facts.
in a row. So,
yes, sir.
So
yes,
sir.
Yeah.
Yes, so
sir.
I think we're gonna be. Yeah, I think.
Yes, sir.
I think things are gonna turn out well for you in Kingdom Hearts 2. And yeah, you can follow me at Cam Final Mix on Twitter. Hopefully, we can get the Kingdom Hearts 2 episode out before the end of May, but next week is PAX and a bunch of other things. We're going to be busy doing other video game stuff, so please be patient with us, because I know that some people were just like, yo, where's the Chain of Memories episode? And we're just like, we're not ready yet. Like, it is something that it's a process. We have to find the time to record. We have to play through the games, and each game's like almost 30 plus hours. So please just be patient with us, and hopefully we can get an episode out before May ends. But until next time, may your heart be your guiding key.